Hello folks, and welcome back to a very chilly and windy Holly Farm fishery. Now this is a venue that's very local to me. It's a venue I've fished loads in the past, and I've just recently started fishing the odd open match here, and luckily I've had a couple of decent results. Yesterday I fished a match here and actually managed to win the match. And what I've done is I've filmed the match on the GoPro, set the GoPros up, filmed the match for you guys, and instead of doing my usual sort of match rewind, going through, annotating everything, you know, what I wanted to do is run you through the match myself, maybe go through in a few more details about what happened on the day. So, first things first, peg that I've drawn. Peg 23. There's 3 lakes in on the open matches. There's Moby Lake, the middle lake, which is the larger of the 3 lakes, and then you've got the bottom lake, which is a canal-style lake. Now, for me, I always want to be drawing on the middle lake on Trotter's Lake. It involves fishing rod and line, long pole. There's some slightly larger fish in there. It's really nice fishing. There's a real mixed feel to the venue. Fortunately, I've drawn that middle lake. Like I say, peg 23 was my home. Now, when I used to fish this lake in the past, peg 21, 20, they used to be like the boss pegs. 23 was a little bit too far around the corner. You set back in a little bit of a bay, but I've been told there's loads of fish in the lake. There's plenty of F1s. I was looking forward to having a good day. Plan of attack. Now, as always at this time of year, I want to start off by feeding very little. And that for me means chucking a bomb and bread to the far bank. Fishing bomb and bread, it's a tactic that catches loads of fish. So that's what I wanted to start on. Now, I'm going to touch on setup, but only briefly because I shot a video a couple of weeks ago which involved the whole setup in massive detail. So just briefly on the setup, I fished a little inline lead, a 20-gram inline lead, and I've used a short hook length of about 12 inches of 0.14 to a size 16 hook. Got a little quick stop on the hair rig, and that means I can just poke on 3 or 4 little discs of bread. I've not used anything to pop the bread up. It's only very shallow where I'm casting to, so I just want the bread to sort of hold there for a couple of minutes, then slowly sink under its own weight. And that is a brilliant tactic at any time of year, but especially when the water temperatures are really cold. I've got off the mark within sort of like 10 minutes with an early F1, a 2-pound F1. A great start. Not many people had caught at this point, but before that fish, I'd had a few line bites and just gave me a little bit of confidence that there was some fish in the area. I always expected the pole to be the main line, so I plumbed up a line at 13 metres. I had plumbed up also at 16 metres, but the wind was a little bit nasty, and I just felt that we're going to struggle to hold the pole at 16 metres for most of the day. So 30 metres was going to be my main line. Maggots were going to be my bait. I'd already fed at the start of the match a few maggots, but what I wanted to do is every sort of 10 or 15 minutes just top up that pole line. So every time I got a chance, I'd fill up my pot, ship out with just about 15-20 maggots and just rattle them in over that 30-metre pole line. It just kept it topped up because the intention was to feed quite regularly on that line with a little pole mounted pot, a little grip flex pot over the top. So I wanted to almost replicate that style of feeding. Back on the bomb swim, and then we've had another bite. This time it's a carp, a little bit bigger, probably about 3 pound. Again, not many people are catching at this point, but you could just tell there was a few fish in my area. I was getting line bites. I could just tell that there was some few fish knocking around. And the fact that I only had 2 fish quite early on, when I've had so many indications, sort of told me that those fish were maybe sitting down the middle. They were probably in and around that pole line area. Another bite that's sort of 15 minutes on the bomb and bread told me I've got to get on the pole pretty quickly and try and catch a few of those fish that are obviously sitting down the middle of the lake. Now, I've mentioned we're fishing maggots on the pole line, so let's talk about rigs. Anyone that's watched any of my videos will know my standard sort of rig for this style of fishing. It involves Malman duster, it's got a 1.5mm bristle, wire stem, nice sort of elongated rugby ball body there. I think that's a really nice standard, you know, no frills pole float for this style of fishing. The depth is about 5.5, 6 foot deep on Trotters Lake. So we've gone for a 4x14s float. That's made up on 014 main line, a nice robust main line. I'm not going to get bust on 014. While we're up this end, let's talk about elastic. That is reactor core. It's a Cerise reactor core, which I think is rated to 10 to 12, something like that. It's a really nice, soft, forgiving elastic, perfect for this time of year. You know, you want to strike, loads comes out. I can use the puller bung if I need to. Really nice elastic, perfect for like F1s, carp at this time of year. Really, really nice days. Now, shotting wise, as we get down the base of the rig, this was my starting shotting pattern. So you can see there, I've got sort of, well, let's start with the number nine shot. I've got them tightly grouped together up here, and then gradually as we go down the rig, then space further out till we get to just above the hook length where there's a 4-inch gap. I'm using a 4-inch hook length. I like a short hook length when I'm fishing for, you know, when there's a lot of F1s around, so a shorter hook length is good. The hook length's 010. I've got a size 18, that's a MIDI 9313 hook. Barbless obviously, nice fine wire. Perfect for double maggot, single maggot, maggot and a pinker. As is always the case when you're feeding maggots, that little fleck of colour that a fluoro pinker gives you is a brilliant hook bait, so it's a perfect size hook for that. Now, as we go on, this shotting pattern changes throughout the day, so we'll probably touch back on this rig as we go on with the session, but that was the starting shotting pattern. You know, that's on the negative side of my fishing style, so we're getting a nice slow fall of the bait throughout the bottom third of the rig. You know, I think that's a great way to start, especially if you're rattling bait over the top of your pole float all the time. I've got to say the pole line was really good. We've started off, we had to wait a little bit for bites initially, but we started off, we've caught some little F1s, we're sort of talking 8 ounce, 10 ounce F1s, really shy little bites on the float, really interesting little bites. It took quite a bit of working out, if I'm honest, but by rattling some maggots from that Gripflex pot, talking 15 maggots each time we shipped out, we were getting indications, and it was passable. The pace was good, it was okay. after probably an hour of fishing on that line, we've had a few issues with missed bites, getting indication. I could tell that those fish are maybe intercepting those maggots halfway down, and I'm getting line bites. I felt that the rig just wasn't working right for me. And that's when I started feeding with a bigger pot, not feeding any more bait, but actually shipping out with a big pot, same amount of maggots, 15, 20 maggots, putting those maggots in, shipping back, baiting my rig, and then shipping out. Now that seems like a lot of hard work when I could just fill my little grip flex pot, ship out, rattle in some maggots. You know, it takes no time. But what that does is it forces me to slow down. So it's a trick that I love to employ when there's a lot of fish in the swim. It means that by the time I've shipped my big pot back, baited my hook, shipped back out again, lowered my rig in, hopefully those maggots or whatever you're feeding is somewhere near the bottom, and obviously that's where you're going to present your rig. That resulted in a really good spell of fishing. Fantastic fishing, and we actually had to change the rig a little bit because the fish were then hard on the bottom. We moved those shot down, we bulked the shot, and then we just had one dropper just above that hook length knot. So a bulk of number 9s and one single dropper just above the hook length knot. So really hold that bait still, nail it on the spot. You know, we could really target those fish that were sitting there on the bottom. Instant indications as well, because there was so much weight at the bait at the bottom of the rig. As the session progresses, you've got to make loads of little changes. And that big pot feeding those maggots, after a while, that just wasn't right. I felt like the fish were just drifting away. There wasn't enough attraction in the swim for those fish to hang around. And that's when, for the last 90 minutes, I put the Grip Flex pot back on, started feeding again with that pot. But, as was the case again, I was getting indications, too many indications for catching a fish, too many line bites. So my solution was to still use the Grip Flex pot, but to actually put the bait in away from my float. So I'd chip out, put my bait in probably a foot back from where I was putting my rig into the water, let all that excitement happen a foot away from my pole float, and obviously when I sit there with my pole float, I'm getting a truer bite because there's not so many line bites. Hopefully those fish, if there is some spooky fish, they're just pushing away from me as well, and we're catching them a foot past where I'm feeding. That worked really well. Some maggots rattling on the surface obviously gets the F1s all excited, and you know, the target fish for the day, F1s from sort of like 10 ounce to 2 pound. We've had some lovely fish. It worked superbly. In that period as well, we've hooked a big carp. Unfortunately, we've lost it. But obviously, we're using light gear. We were targeting those F1s at this point because there was obviously loads of them around. Now, going into the last 5 minutes, you could tell that no one was running away with it. It was going to be a pretty low weight match. Loads of people were catching fish, but no one was catching a massive weight. So every fish was really crucial. And you could just feel that a couple more fish was hopefully going to win me some money. So with literally like 20 seconds to go, I've struck into a fish, willing the float to go under, and the float's finally gone under. I've struck into a fish. It's a 2 pound F1, and I'm netting it as the all out sounded. So when I look back, that fish was obviously the difference, but you know, that's how you go sometimes. We were having a really good run later on in the session. I felt like I'd sorted the feeding out, so maybe we deserved that extra fish. Fish on. Sit. At the weigh-in, I've weighed 44 pounds, which, luckily for me, beat two 43-pound weights to take the victory. Really lucky. Obviously, that last F1 made all the difference. Now, we picked up a little bit of money as well, so that goes in the pocket. Really happy about that. But more importantly, we've had a fantastic day's fishing. We had to think about it a bit. We've had bites. It was really interesting. I've really enjoyed myself, and I love fishing on that lake. And to be honest, the whole complex is fishing really well at the minute. So, no doubt about it, I will be back. Now, what I want to say is, if you're not a subscriber, please think about it. You get loads of different styles of fishing videos, whether I'm on a little tiny river fishing for chub, or we're going out fishing a big match somewhere. There's something for everyone, I'm sure. Until next time, guys, tight lines.